Hello, and welcome to a video on managing CUCM phones and users for the purpose of deploying Cisco Voice. Let's go ahead and get started with exploring DHCP and DNS dependencies. Let's take a look at our server. We're going to explore DHCP and DNS dependencies. As part of the required software for this video, we have a Windows 2012 server running an ESXi platform. We installed that server, deployed the template, and powered it on. And when we first get into that device, we want to manage that server. So let's go ahead and open up our vSphere client. Here's our vSphere client. We want to go ahead and open up and take a look at the Windows 2012 server. We want to go ahead and click on it. We want to move over to the console. We want to click in here. It says here that we want to press Control-Alt-Delete to sign in, but because we are inside this console, what we would need to do here is click on Alt-Control-Insert, and that'll get us inside. So you see I'm trying to move the mouse outside the box, and I am not able to. So we go ahead and click on the administrator. We're going to go ahead and enter our password. Now that we are logged in, the first thing that we want to do is that we want to enable remote desktop connection. What we do here is that we go and click on the local server. We check on remote desktop. I already have mine enabled, but what you can do is just click on it. You want to make sure that you allow remote connections to this computer. When you first install this, deploy it, and you log into here, this is what you're going to be seeing. It's going to be on don't allow remote connections to this computer. You can go ahead and click on select users. You can add a user, but this here, how it says any members of the administration group can connect even if they're not listed here. So we are part of the administration group. Now what we want to do is go ahead and connect through the remote desktop connection from our host computer. But like before, we need to be able to get out of here. And the way that we do that is by pressing Control and Alt, and that gets us out of the console here. So now to look up the remote desktop, I have it on my taskbar, but if you need to look for it, you can just hit the start and just start typing remote. And here is your remote desktop connection. You want to verify that the address on here is the address for the Windows server, and here it is, the server address 192.168.15.12. We're going to go ahead and click on connect, and we're going to put in our password. What I want to do is create a DHCP and a DNS server. The importance of this is to allow phones to receive an IP address, gateway, and an option 150 code. As well, if I progress further in this exercise, I do want to have a local DNS server to be able to resolve host names for publisher, for presence, for Unity, and etc. for those servers. So in lieu of having an outside DHCP server, I'm going to create one in my Windows platform, and this will also act as a domain controller. So I can have user accounts integrated with LDAP into our system. The first thing we need to do before we deploy those phones is going to establish a DHCP server. So let's go ahead and start that process. At this point, we want to go ahead and open our administrative tools. To get to our administrative tools, you can go down here and click on start and just start typing administrative tools. It'll pop up. Click on it. Can expand. I already have a working DHCP server. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new scope. So I'm going to go ahead and click on DHCP, expand this. Here's the current one that I have under scope. And what we want to do is that we want to create a whole new one. So we're going to go ahead and right click, and we're going to click on new scope. Going to hit next. And we want to name this scope. We're going to create, let's say, make a scope for a 10 network. So we're going to name this DHCP S10, and we're going to go ahead and give it a description as the DHCP for the 10 network. We also want to give it a range. Since it's going to be the 10 network, we're going to go ahead and give it the name of 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.0.254. We're going to make it a mask of 24. And then there's also an exclusion range that we want to do. So let's just say that you want your servers to be on the first 20 or so. So we just go ahead and input that addresses in here. And we hit add. And let's just say that you have a certain address that you want to exclude also. You can just go ahead and input that in here. Let's take, for example, 10.0.0.100. So just input that in here 2 times. We can go ahead and click on next. Here we have our scope for our lease. For our IP address, we have days, hours, and minutes. Right now it's set up for 8 days. We can just go ahead and leave it like that. And then it's asking us if we want to configure the DHCP options for this scope now. And we'll just leave it as yes, we do. So we want to have an address on here for our router. So we're going to go ahead and input the address of 10.0.0.254 and hit next. Then we want to go ahead and we want to configure a DNS server, and this DNS server will be myself. Typically it's a Windows platform. Generally will point to my own device, so let's just say that it's going to be, in this case, 10.0.0.19. And we're going to see if this is going to validate. More than likely it's not, since it's not a server that is active right now. What we want to do is just go ahead and point it to our address that we have here, to our own server, and see if it'll validate after that. Like I said, it didn't validate, but let's go ahead and put in our own 192.168.15.12. We'll click on add and see if this validates. And sure enough, it did. What we want to do is we're going to do an order here. We want to make sure that it searches through this one first. So we're going to click on up, and it's going to be the first one that it's going to look for when it's trying to resolve. Let's click next. We also want to do this for our wins. So we're going to go ahead and name that also on this server address. And click add. Click next. And yes, we want to activate this scope right now. We already have one working, but we're just going through the process on how to set one up. So here we have our new scope, our 10 network. And you see this little blue circle that's here? That just means that we don't have any clients that are working on this right now. I have an existing scope, and we need something called an option 150 so our phones know to point to that TFTP server. The publisher server is the 192.168.15.70. So let's go to the scope options. We want to go ahead and right click and configure options, and we want to scroll down to where we can find the 150 option. Going to go ahead and click on it, and as you can see here, our address is already in here for our publisher server. So when my phones load, they will know where to get their TFTP loads. But since we're not going to be utilizing the 10, let's go over here and take a look at the one that I already have working. And you see we already have the 150 option on here. So we're going to go ahead and deactivate this scope since we're not going to use it. Yes, we want to disable the scope. Next, what we want to do is establish a DNS record lookup. And for that, let's take a look at our DNS records. So let's go back to our administrative tools and click on DNS. Let's go ahead and expand it. we want to go and take a look and see what the name is going to be. And the way that we can go ahead and do that is that we can go back to our server. Okay, here we are at our server. Let's go ahead and log in. You just make sure from our earlier videos, we want to make sure that we are in CM administration for this one and put in our username and password. Now that this is loaded up, we want to go to System and Server. We're going to go ahead and click Find. And here we can see the description. If we go ahead and click on one of these, we see that this one is going to be, the description is for our CUP. This is for our IM and present server. And here's the address. So what we want to do is that we want to be able to get this so that our phones can point to it. So we copy that. We go back to our Windows server. And what we want to do is we want to go to the forward lookup zone. And we go to our Cisco, and what we do is just right click and we click on a new host, either A or quad A, which is for our IP version 6. We go ahead and we paste and we put in the address. In this case, it's going to 192.168.15.74. And if we want to verify that that is the right address, we can go back and take a look. Here it is. It's 74. And we go ahead and click on Add Host. But I already have this one set up in here. It's my CUP. We already have the Windows server set up in here. But what we can do now is that we can go ahead and test these. And the way that we would test these is, for example, we can take this pub 11.5. We can copy it. We're going to go back to our host, and what we can do is open up a command prompt, and from here we can just go ahead and ping it. So my DNS dependencies are very important to have provisioned for my system. I want to ensure that I'm able to reach all the servers that I have provisioned. Let's go ahead and ping one more here. To test this, I can just go to my PC, and instead of having a static address, I can make it a DHCP address. What we need to do is that we go down here to our network. We'll go ahead and right click, open our network and internet sharing. We want to go to change of our adapter options. And here we have our network. We want to right click on it and go down to properties. We want to scroll down to our IP version 4 and we want to click on properties. We want to make sure that both of these are set up to obtain the address automatically. Now what we want to do is we want to go back to our command prompt. And we can just go ahead and just do an IP config all. And we can see here that we have our default gateway and we have our IP address here. So now we have all our addressing information that we need to go move forward on this. Now it's going to be easy for us to create the phones. We're just going to go ahead and add the phones.